Hello, and welcome to the Idiot Book Nook. My name is Blazewing. My pronouns are they, them.
I'm Lady Planet. My pronouns are sometimes she, her, sometimes they, them. Hello. Today is a she, they kind of day featuring my co-star Nugget, who's trying to eat spicy ramen. Don't eat this spicy ramen.
And I'm Critter Shy. My pronouns are mostly she, her, with a sprinkle of they, them, and that's Grim, my little avocado of doom.
Avocado.
He's our little Mexican.
Today we're going through Chapter 5 of Vampire Jack Townson's Fame Has Its Price. But before we get into that, a couple of things to take care of. First, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so through our link tree, which is linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll be able to find links to our podcast, to the YouTube, to all of our individual channels, and you'll be able to see what we're individually up to. And second comes a trigger warning for this book. Just so you are aware, there are some pretty heavy topics in here, and this gives you the option to bow out of this chapter if you so choose. None of us know what's coming this chapter, and we do give this each chapter of this book the trigger warnings that the author has ever so graciously included for us. Before you enjoy your reading experience of The Vampire Jack Townson, Fame Has Its Price, please be aware of the following trigger warnings: rape, moments of discrimination, graphic violence, and grooming. Quote, "As someone who has had their power taken from them, I believe in the importance of consent in all things. However, to shy away from these topics is not to make them go away, but to be blind to them. Jack Townson." With that, are we ready to mosey on in to Chapter 5?
1 second, let me get my book open.
We who are about to die salute you. Oh, wait, wrong show.
So, first things first, reminder, if you are not 100% certain that you can handle the contents of this book, do not feel bad about not being able to listen. Take your own mental health first and foremost, and if you like, you can join us in our next discussion where we actually discuss what happens in the book. If you're just look out for yourself first. If you are like 95% sure you can handle it, okay, but the second you start feeling uncomfortable, do not feel bad about stopping listening.
Yep.
And sometimes if things get spicy, we will have to fade to black because we have to do that.
On the Twitches.
That being said, we may end up at some point putting out a behind-the-scenes reading, or at least I might. I don't know how that's going to go yet. Keep an eye open for that. I'll go let you guys know. With that being said, Chapter 5, Last Night Alive.
Ominous.
The city,
Dun, dun, dun.
post-audition, was a different world altogether. Soggy dumpsters and pizza-stealing rodents gave way to a version of New York that was opulent under a sea of stars. Our foray into the night was a whirlwind of euphoria, and excitement ran like liquid fire through my veins. Nothing was off limits. Alexander and I began our night at a small dive bar. The location seemed like nothing of worth at first, but then the owner came to greet us. He and Alexander seemed to be old friends as they chattered about life over broad grins, the man's speckled by caps of gold.
Alex, come.
Sorry, say that again. You kind of cut out.
Sorry. My mic's being weird lately. Come to the back, Alex. Come.
He gestured with arms sleeved in tattoos, and we followed. There we were treated to the most incredible show, twin dancers coiling their bodies like snakes beneath the glitter of a disco ball. Two tight black braids whipped and swayed at the backs of each head, more tattoos spiraling up their legs, and across each set of ribs. It was an intimate exhibition, only for us. These identical vixens writhed against one another, showing us sights that should have been forbidden. Normally, it wasn't my sort of thing, but Alexander's boyish smile and commentary made it seem like this display was his favorite and rarest treat. A server came to our private booth, offering a strange green liquid. Absinthe, he called it, and we both drank deeply as the world seemed to slip away. Anything left of my inhibitions melted, and the fear-riddled boy of the past replaced by a daring demon who yearned to share in Alexander Lamont's devious glee. The world began to formlessly shift and change, faces melting into one another, and the twin dancers at our front colliding again, until two became one. It was horrifying. Yet, with Alexander at my side, I felt safe. There was no danger. My hand found his leg as I watched, my fingers digging into the muscle as he released an encouraging laugh. His palm slipped over mine. We locked eyes, and in my moment of inebriation, his lavender orbs seemed aglow, as if he was somehow inhuman. Something in my heart gave a knowing tug, but I couldn't place it. We spent the better part of an hour there before leaving, and that was only the first stop of the evening. From there, we gallivanted towards the Metropolitan Opera House, where a poor fool like me could have ever only dreamed to go. A place where the greatest sang upon a glittering stage, telling stories of romance, death, and despair. At first, I panicked. It was instinct. I had no money, no tickets. Too quickly, I forgot who my companion was for the evening. Alexander grasped my hand and led me into the champagne-colored lobby. He waved to a familiar face before walking me up a few sets of stairs to a particular box overlooking the stage from above. I had always dreamt of seeing a Broadway show, but the opera I could have never even imagined. Alexander slithered through plushy red seats and practically pulled me on top of him. The house was vast, a rolling sea of red and champagne opulence. Below, the orchestra was nearly half filled with patrons. To our left, the mezzanine was also filling up quickly, excitable chatter sweeping through the space. Everyone in attendance was dressed to the nines except for me, but the funny thing was, I didn't care much anymore. The fear of the past was swept away and replaced by his boldness. All Alexander and I could do was giggle into one another's faces like two drunk lemmings. Soon the lights dimmed and the show began. It was beautiful to behold, the opera, of course. I could hardly focus with Alexander's pokes and prods. It seemed to be some strange story about a large-bellied man who wished to kill his enemy and bed his wife. It was odd, bizarre, magnificent. I'd never heard such rich tones with my own ears. For the first time in years, my heart was full, and I was inspired to sing myself. A considerable amount of time passed since I'd tried. I, like my songbird, had lost my love for music when Mum passed, but oh, the opera. It dragged the yearning out of me, kicking and screaming. The show lasted about 3 hours, but it captivated me so much the time was barely a concept. It ended with a grand finale, red ribbons strewn about the stage, simulating the last strike to the man's neck as blood-painted tissue paper rained from the scaffolding and down onto the audience and the cast. They bowed. Then we bowed, giggling like children in a fit. Those nearby stared at us in confusion. On we went, two fireballs filling the sky with cinders of jubilant chaos. Alexander ushered me to yet another stage, this one more similar to the first. It was another strange, small operation. After the absinthe and the Met, another cramped space made me claustrophobic and even a little nauseous. This time it was a piano bar, the neon karaoke sign buzzing above a narrow platform. The solitary microphone stared daggers in my direction. My devilish companion gestured to the stage, and I realized exactly what he intended. No, no, I don't think so, I protested furiously, my hands lifting near my face, yet he began pushing me towards the platform.
Come on, Jack.
he cooed.
Forget about anyone else in the room. Sing to me.
The room grew darker. Even though I had only counted about 50 people, all their eyes were on me. An eager quiet fell across the space. Muddled whispers and a stale cough from the far corner made my stomach flip. Nerves made my hands tremble, and before I could step away from the microphone and abandon the mission, I felt my mouth open. Strangers stared with mouths agape as I sang for the first time in years. Alexander pressed his palm to his mouth. Was it awful? Spectacular? I was eager to show him my potential. The melody flowing from my lips was sorrowful as my voice reverberated against the walls. A woman standing near the front mirrored Alexander's gesture as tears filled her eyes. It was my favorite song, an old lullaby from childhood that my mom would sing to me. No matter what stage of life I found myself traversing, it seemed to resonate perfectly. Nature Boy by Nat King Cole. I used to sing my dear Chloe to sleep with it when the nights became particularly hard. Alexander beamed and his smile was infectious. As I sang, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the man who had given me the courage to stand up on stage and show myself to the world, even just a little.
Bravo!
He cried when I concluded. The crowd exploded into applause, a feeling so new to me. Applause, not angry screams or disapproving grunts, but the cheers of an audience. It was beautiful. The numbness from earlier had vanished. Tears flooded my eyes. It was a great release, my soul bursting from iron chains at last. Alexander tugged my arm, pulling me away from the stage, through the crowd until I was able to gulp down the cooler air city air again.
Why didn't you mention there was such a songbird inside of you, Jack? What a gift!
He gave a wolfish smile down at me, and even when I tried to revel in this high, his words reminded me of Chloe waiting back home. I couldn't help but wilt a bit.
Jack,
He breathed, catching my weary gaze.
whatever is the matter? Aren't you having fun? You should be so proud of yourself. Look!
He grasped my hands and showed them to me.
You've stopped shaking, my friend.
He was right. The tremors of the moment had gone. My nerves became as strong as steel, even with the shockwaves of anxiety and exhilaration. How? How did I work up the nerve to do that? I fumbled. The midnight breeze was sobering, and I closed my eyes, letting it wash over my skin, sticky with perspiration.
No magic, no tricks. It was you. You did this. You stood on that stage and wooed that audience. You showed them the depth of your soul. And you are so incredible.
His musical voice circled my head and made my bones warm. My focus returned to his as he squeezed my hands tighter. Were those emotions really mine? I never thought I'd feel anything this deep so suddenly for anyone, let alone another man.
Jack,
His muscular jaw clenched.
you are so special. Do you know that? Beyond what you could have ever dreamed, a diamond in a sea of quartz. Whoever made you feel like you weren't enough, they were wrong.
Heat blossomed in my face. With all my strength, I tried to wrench my gaze from his, but it was a useless effort. It was all I could do to just keep breathing as his eyes swallowed me down into a violent abyss. Hypnotic.
Come along. The night is still young, and so many adventures await.
Alexander was off yet again, his feet gliding across the pavement. We were like two children basking in the glory of the city that never slept. We drank down pools of moonlight as it poured from the cracks in the weighty clouds. I'd never felt more alive, however, feeling as if I had died and was living out the fantasies of the life I had always wished for. Alexander was everything I always wanted to be. I followed every step, mirrored every grin, every laugh to a friend or acquaintance whose name I'd forgot almost instantly, and every pirouette upon those urban streets. He made this place feel like a mysterious wonderland, and not some trash-covered waste pile. Every stop was a new mystery, a new chance to watch him work his magic, and every affair made me fall deeper into the love that was blossoming under my sternum and tossing my mind with confusion.
Jack?
He asked, wrenching me out of my inner monologue. His hand reached for mine, elongated nails pointing daringly in my direction as if ready to rip me to pieces.
Ready for what's next?
I continued with him, my hand clutching his as we ran to the next location, a boutique I had never heard of. The sign was illuminated with red and gold light, a rose wilting over cursive letters, which spelled out the Gilded Rose. Its windows displayed high fashion styles and the fanciest clothing I had ever seen. How strange that a clothing boutique would be open at 2 in the morning. Alexander dragged me through the double doors, down an aisle, passing the mannequins, styled with fashions meant for the runaway. They adorned mostly gaudy French designs I wasn't fond of myself. We then approached the clerk's desk. A young girl sat in a swivel chair, chewing a wad of bubblegum, her rose-tinted bottle-cap glasses pointed down at the gossip magazine she was reading. Monsters Among Us? Body found drained of blood. Horror show in the Big Apple, the headline screamed in bright yellow. The words were splashed over a darker picture I could barely make out. What an idea. There were no such thing as monsters, just people, horrible and broken people doing monstrous things. The tabloids would do anything to sell a story, though. Give me 1 second, I have to switch my mic. Sorry, it was having trouble picking me up from its previous position. Alexander shoved me at the store clerk, my suit tie flopping and nearly slapping the woman in the face.
Holy shit.
She cawed, seemingly recognizing my companion, her cheeks drained of color, or what color was left of it. Her complexion was a striking sort of pale.
Claudia, this is my dear friend and possible protege, the incredible Jack. He seems to be suffering from an illness I like to call tedium. Symptoms, a horrid lack of style.
He smiled playfully.
We can fix that. Yes?
He wasn't wrong. My work uniform was indeed very dull. Glancing down at myself, I found my jacket stained and crumpled from the rain and the festivities we both delighted in. Not to mention, it was steeped in the scents of the city. The store was freezing, the air permeating my still damp shirt and hitting my bones. I was for sure going to get pneumonia. The girl stared with little emotion at Alexander, a heavy exhale causing the gum she chewed to fill the air until pop! I'll get her. Oh, sorry. This would be our storekeep.
I'll get her, though I doubt she wants to talk to you right now.
I wondered what she meant by that. Claudia stood from her seat and disappeared behind a back curtain. The girl had sass. I watched the sway of her narrow hips as she retreated. A few silent moments passed, my companion examining his talons before a shrill cry resounded from the mysterious foundries of the store.
Alexander!
A woman's angry scream practically rattled the windows. My body tensed as the shrillness of it took me by surprise. In seconds, the curtain was shoved to the side, skinny digits gripping the cloth. There, with possibly the most infuriated snarl I had ever seen, was a tall Amazon of a woman. Her cherry red hair was pulled into a loose bun, eyes of fiery green, staring past me and burning holes right into Alexander's soul.
You have damn nerve showing your face here, you little himbo.
Her red stilettos clacked across the tile as she approached. The tight dress she wore left very little to the imagination as it hugged every curve of her pale body.
Ah, still angry, I see.
Alexander grinned, his expression hardly changing in the wake of her apparent rage. As she grew closer, both her hands slammed onto the surface of the counter. Her exposed cleavage struggled within the restrictive outfit. She stared daggers at Lamont.
You're damn right I am. 6 of my girls. 6! How could you?
Her tantrum was cut short suddenly by the man's cold and precise tongue.
Annabelle,
He snapped, but corrected himself at once.
we have a guest. Mind yourself, my dear.
At that moment, I thought nothing could have calmed this femme fatale from her assault, yet at the sound of his voice her face softened, eyes of brilliant emerald widening before landing upon me. She sighed, her shoulders easing down from her earlobes.
Right then. Who do we have here?
Her voice faltered, eyes glazing as she leaned in close across that desk, a slight flush to her cheeks. Our eyes locked, and I felt my heart drum in my chest, her pouting ruby lips pressed together as metaphorical hearts seemed to fill her pupils.
You're beautiful. Alex, who is this? Your friend?
She turned from me to aim the question at Alexander. He simply smiled with a nod, his hand raising to flick more strands of his narrow face.
This is Jack, my protege, if he decides to be. We've been having an incredible evening out on the town. He's been learning about our world.
His tone dissolved into something of a whisper.
You know, in the industry.
He gave her a cheeky wink, and a sudden feeling emerged that I was not on the joke, or that I was not in on the joke. She nodded, her eyes never fully leaving me.
So,
She started.
you're obviously here for a reason, and
There it was. The glare finally fell over my suit. I cringed.
oh, sweetheart. What the fuck are you wearing?
She groaned, her hand leaving the counter to run down the length of my tie. With a hard swallow, I finally mustered the courage to say the words, "It's just a work outfit." The statement came out more like a squeak. I was fired today. The woman shrieked, her lacquered talons pulling me closer.
Hello?
I,
And you never thought of to take it off?
I shrugged. Her glare finally released me, returning to Alexander.
Oh, Alex. He's so beautiful, but not very bright.
I relinquished a hard sigh.
Well,
She clapped her hands together as she stood to her full height, which I was surprised to find out was the same as my own.
I have a very high-end store, as you can see. I'm sure everything is far beyond your budget, but seeing as Alexander always foots the bill.
She shot him a dark look, and he nodded.
Pick out anything your heart desires and make it count.
Lamont simpered at me, one talon hooked beneath his lower lip.
You heard the harpy. Anything you want. Have fun.
Scouring the displays around me, my heart swelled. Perhaps the only reason I never cared for designer fashion was simply because I knew I couldn't afford it. But oh, the colors, the fabrics, the quality, all of the zippers. It was more than my secret inner fashionista's heart could manage. As I practically danced my way through the various aisles, I overheard Alex and Annabelle's heated conversation. They kept their voices low, but whatever happened must have been pretty horrible. I snuck behind the rack of coats and leaned forward on my toes to get a better view. From the side, I could see Annabelle reaching a hand to her face. Her red makeup must have smeared from a flurry of tears, for there was no other explanation, the bold red splotch stretching across her cheek as she attempted to wipe it away. Perhaps from her eyeshadow?
No.
Jack?
Alexander called, as I startled, ducking behind the wall of heavy clothes. I wasn't completely used to my new name yet, but his voice breaking through the quiet was enough.
How goes the hunt, darling boy?
There was too much to look at, and so much to try on. Uh, 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 still looking. My voice broke on the last word. Did he know I was eavesdropping? I spent the better end of 30 minutes trying on every outfit possible. My destroyed worksuit lay crumpled on the dressing room floor. Legend has it, it's still crumpled there to this day. Instead, I endeavored to replace it with tailcoats, mesh shirts, leather or lace. I couldn't decide. I was completely absorbed in it all. And then, a very specific item demanded my gaze, and gripped it tight. Harsh, alternative zippers wrapped around the front, a large hood enough to hide my long hair and face, and sleeves I could easily roll up to my elbows. A bold red hoodie. It was
Ooh.
perfect. The marriage of my mundane life and the potential of this new gallant one. An homage to the old while welcoming in the new. After finding some black leather pants with almost as many zippers, I found them both still bickering back at the counter. I stood before them like a child in elementary school ready for a picture day, my face beaming. Annabel tilted her head, her eyebrow perking. I cringed, readying myself for some harsh critique. Instead, she responded with a bright smile.
Oh.
She left the desk to encircle me, her hand landing upon the material at my chest, tracing a small pattern.
Bohemian. How expressionist. I love it when high fashion goes a bit urban, and the color's an obvious favorite of mine.
Her hand left me to tap upon her lip.
Perhaps, Jack, there's more to you than meets the eye.
I was shocked. My first attempt at being fashionable had been approved by the shop owner herself. My mind was made up. This one, please, I beamed at Alexander. I love it. Oh, this one, please, I beamed at Alexander.
I love it. You look marvelous, breathtaking, frigant, audacieux, incroyable.
The words
Thank
dripped
God
from
we have
his
Critter doing it.
the words dripped from his lips like liquid silk, my heart fluttering as praise fell across my skin. Annabel simply rolled her eyes before returning to Alexander, closing in on him.
Remember what I said. If you ever pull that stunt again, we will have a problem. I don't care who you are. I will make it count.
The vixen hissed through her teeth. The jubilant mood of the moment was slashed through by her intensity, the energy about the store becoming still and awkward. Alexander simply grinned in return, the perfect picture of calm.
Noted.
He whispered over a wink. The woman then turned on me once more, brushing off a speck of dust from my hoodie and fixed my rain-slicked hair. She sighed.
Listen good, you. If he gives you any issue, you come to me. And if you need any new clothes, they're yours.
Her stare tugged at me. Everything else in the room grew fuzzy around her sharp face. Beautiful.
Memorize it. Annabelle Cross, Gilded Rose. I know it's probably pretty hard to retain information when a head is with a head as pretty as that, but just try to remember. All right?
I nodded, yet I couldn't help but linger, our gazes colliding like the forest on the edge of spring, the greens and bright browns dancing in spite of the waning winter wind. We left Annabelle's boutique and made our way through the streets, my mind swimming with the delights of the evening, hardly remembering how it all began. The horror of the body on the street, the embarrassing moment in the coffee shop, the loss of the job I hardly cared about. Even my sister's small face as she wished me well on my journey seemed hazy now. It was as if my old life slipped away, shred by shred, with every new experience replaced by this incredible adventure into the night. It came upon 4 in the morning. We returned to the Prepotence, though the place seemed so different now. When I'd first laid eyes on the theater, I was terrified of the audition to come, but now, mere hours later, I felt like I had been baptized into this new, more confident existence by the one, the only Alexander Lamont. Up the elevator, through the empty club, and toward the office where we had originally met, Alexander stopped me before the door, which displayed his name in heavy golden letters.
This is where it ends, if you so choose, dear Jack.
I noted the lump forming in my throat. This would be Alexander Lamont.
Oh, okay. Our night has been incredible. Adventure, joy I haven't experienced in quite a long time. If you choose to stay the evening with me, then you accept my offer. If not, I will gladly see to it that you're returned to your home and compensated for your time here.
My mouth fell open at once to protest, to decry my previous home and my dismal life. How could I ever return to such a dim existence now? But as a strange, frantic sound blurted from my throat, a sharp finger quickly thrust against my lips to silence it.
If you stay, Jack,
He began again slowly.
then you are my protege. Mine. With that comes a very weighty responsibility. I need you to understand that. A new path of fame.
One moment, please. Technical difficulties.
A new path of fame and intrigue will be yours, and people will say, Jack is the most celebrated artist in the known world.
I stood over weak legs, my dear songbird singing in my mind as her last words resounded within my head. This is the little sister.
Good luck out there, and be safe, please.
Inside my mind, a war raged. Responsibility or glory? Fortune or the familiar? Alexander, I started, his violet glare resting upon me. My lips trembled at the hands at my sides, clammy as I squeezed them in fear. Then the finite words slipped from my mouth. Show me your world, I begged, staggered toward him. I couldn't help it. Take me with you. Teach me everything. I practically moaned the request. In an instant, his hand was in mine.
Everything.
He questioned, his voice only a breath, but somehow drowned out the sounds of the whole world. Everything. And thus ends Chapter 5 of Fame Has Its Price by the Vampire Jack Townson. We want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this chapter, and if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/Idiot Book Nook, where you'll be able to find links to our podcast, to our YouTube channel, and all of our individual projects on the net. For this episode of the Idiot Book Nook, I'm Blazewing.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And I'm Crittershy.
And we'll see you next episode for the discussion portion of this chapter.